I'm just a little shorter, so. I am a daughter born to a Hmong American family who came as refugees to the US almost 40 years ago. My family traces our roots back to China, where over 200 years ago, my ancestors made their way to Laos because their ethnic people were being killed. What saved them then was the strong familial bonds that ensured that they were not going to be left behind. During the secret war in Laos, my father had gone off to fight for the Americans. My mother was left with 4 small children, ages 4, 3, 2, and 1. In the last months before we left our home in the mountains of Laos, my mother moved us into the jungle because being in the village was no longer safe. At night, she would hide us under huge banana leaves and go off to find food. She'd come back and wonder how we were ever going to survive. We stayed in the jungle for months until a group of other Hmong families came by, and an elderly gentleman with my mother's same last name told her she must leave or we will be killed. He told her to just consider him an uncle since they had the same last name, and he would help her carry one of us. So my mother made the hard decision to leave not knowing where my father was, and just like that, we left everything we had ever known. It took us a month to walk in the dead of night to safety in Thailand. Eventually, my father found us and rejoined us at the Thai border. Again, what saved us was that familial bond. In America, I learned about the civil rights movement, about the women's movement, and so on. Soon, I began wondering why my family, in the community that loved me so much to save me during war, was so strict about who I could become and what I was supposed to be doing daily and my value and worth in the community as a woman. These questions have pushed me to do everything that I am doing today on the issue of gender. Let me tell you that I haven't found the right answers, but instead, I found many possibilities. And tonight, as we all come here to support global rights for women, I want to just share 3 insights from my experiences of working to transform and achieve gender justice. 1, whatever our strategy, we must recognize that to achieve the kind of change we want to see for women and girls, our work must be based in love. I know that sounds fluffy, it is. But I say this because there have been many times in this work when I have been demonized simply because I called out brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, elected officials, neighbors, leaders, because you see, it takes us calling out people when they are upholding harmful patriarchal practices. I know that all of you in this room, when you call out people for causing harm, it's not because you hate community or your family or our country even. We are calling those gender oppressive practices because we love our people and we believe they can do better. And to end things like gender-based violence takes loving everyone, even perpetrators. And what's more important is that when we think about love, we think about whole people, and we remember that we have other kinds of systems that are also oppressive to people, in particular people of color. You can't do this work unless you are filled with love. If you haven't tried it, center your solutions on love to see if you might end up with different answers. Second, whatever level you are targeting your solutions at, ask yourself, how are we in service to local leadership and investing in building capacity on the ground? Because at the end of the day, we have the luxury to return home and even leave when our solutions aren't working, but the people with whom we have built help remain. If we are only offering to do for them or supporting them if they do what we want, but not investing in their leadership and their local infrastructure and capacity, we might as well just fly a plane in and take as many people out as possible. When I returned to Laos in 2009 to engage young ethnic Hill tribe women, I brought with me $3,000 that I had raised from friends and family. Over dinner, we discussed what their lives were like and what they imagined for themselves. Many wanted support to learn English. Some wanted trade training. Others wanted support for their education. All wanted to transform gender practices so that they could truly live out their potentials. I let them know that the money that I had brought was for them to do what they wanted with. Even though they each had needs, they all created Sisterhood Laos, which today remains the only group created and run by ethnic minority women. Today, the group has a social enterprise, a group of over 20+ young women leaders, and many have returned to their villages to host family conversations on gender. They have participated in their country's conversations about how Laos can help ensure gender equality, and also joined several international conferences to talk about their work. Their success is not only in the things they've been able to do, but that they've become that which they never imagined, leaders and capable women who serve their communities and are helping to transform their families and country. I've tried a lot of things, and the thing that consistently works to move the needle on gender has been our investments in local leadership and capacity. Lastly, as you do this work, reflect on what you've tried and answer the question, how is what we are doing contributing to building the movement? Because when we think in movement terms, we don't think about quick fixes, and we don't become saviors. We know we are part of something bigger that must be transformed. My business partners and I traveled to a remote village in Thailand looking for women who are master sewers to work with. When we arrived, we were told that an international NGO had gone there several years ago and asked all the women to stop sewing, but instead to make baskets for them. They were paid fair wages, but when the baskets didn't sell, the international NGO left. After several years of not continuing the craft that had been passed down to them for generations, they lost their skills because someone had good intentions and wanted a quick fix. This meant that these women in the past who had used their master sewing techniques to earn money now have less means to make money for themselves. And when women have no control over their finances, they also can't do what's right for them. If our current environment in the US teaches us anything, it's that transformation to truly liberate gender and achieve justice will take much more time and all of our conviction to the movement. Women's rights might have been won in law, but the tipping point of changing hearts and minds has not happened. We will all have to proactively contribute to this movement. The movement journey starts with equality, progresses toward equity, and ends in justice and liberation. It requires that we remain in the fight and reinvest in each other because none of us in this room, I believe, has truly lived in a gender justice and liberated community. It requires that we see each other as sisters, brothers, and family so that as we continue pushing forward and building each other up, we are strong. Thank you.